Hello and welcome to Today in the News on Vanguard Live. I am Precious Chukudi. We begin on the front pages of the papers this morning. Starting off with Vanguard. Vanguard is leading with impact of huge subsidy removal tough on Nigerians, and that's coming from TINUBU. Rider says parents, guardians, students experiencing discomfort insist the future's bright. Subsidy removal, naira scarcity, others heightening panic, hardship, and that's coming from the Catholic bishops. Kick against blessing of homosexual same-sex marriages. Expedite action to crushing effect of your hard economy decisions, and that's coming from Sharia Council to TINUBU. Ask President to tackle insecurity headlong. You'll see a photo story showing some governors brace commission meeting. Ibadan explosion, police declare owners of building wanted. Fatal polls, discussion ongoing over appeal court judgment, that's coming from Governor Muftwang. Abia, policemen who invaded TV station to face orderly room trial, and that's come from the PPRO. Shetima task African leaders to continent's global GDP. Stories above, we won't allow CBN print money, says budget minister. You can read more on page 19. ADESINA'S book, your 8-year rule was biased, unjust, nepotic, Clark tells Buhari. AFCON cracker, Super Eagle pegs elephants, brighten qualification chances. We take a look at the Guardian newspaper. The Guardian is leading with food for education. Big story, pages 4 and 5. How poor planning, corruption ruined 200 billion naira school feeding initiative in state. And you can see an infograph showing more on that report. Reps panel orders ministry to refund 85 billion naira COVID-19 funds. You can read more on page 3. Ibadan explosion, victims recount ordeal. Task government on handling explosive. Court grants Emefiele travel permission as federal government files fresh charges. A foreign airlines agency in fresh push for release of $751 million stock funds. A Supreme Court dismisses ADC suit. Rules on Gombe Nasarawa Guba cases today. State tighten news on mining as Ibadan explosion death toll now 5. Over 100,000 unarmed Nigerians killed in 8 years, says a report. Shell must not go until cleanup is done, Kappa tells the federal government. Killers of Plateau residents must not escape punishment. Shetima urges African leaders to ramp up continent's $3.1 trillion GDP. Now we take a look at the Nation newspaper. The Nation is leading with federal government charges Emefiele with lying to obtain a $6.2 million. The writer says the ex-CBN boss awarded multi-million naira contracts to family members. Hearing begins. And of course, we can see a photo story showing some of the victims of Ibadan explosion. Stories above, refund the 75 billion naira COVID-19 cash, House panel tells Ministry. APC rules out automatic ticket for Ayedatiwa. It will be level playing field. Eagle shock elephant. Delicate depose Ikirun, and we have stories below. Ibadan explosion. 2 more bodies recovered. Security agents on trail of suspect. Rep plans a full-scale probe. Abiodun Sule Oborivori Idris no fate today. Supreme Court to decide elections appeal. South governors unite for region's growth. Obaseki embrace chair. We take a look at the Punch newspaper. The Punch is leading with public outrage grows as a kidnapping epidemic worsens. Rider says 12 Zamfara Varsity student. Officials 19 Abuja victims, 4 Akwa Ibom coppers among captives. TINUBU urged to tackle insecurity, food crisis at all costs. Bandits attack 10 Kaduna villages. And we can also see a photo story showing IG presented 2 billion naira to families of deceased corpse in Abuja. Police to pay 50 million naira for arresting Abiola's widow in nightgown. You can read that on page 13. Ibadan explosion, death rises to 5 for soldiers occupy site. Supreme Court, Abiodun Adebutu lends fate today. You can see that on page 14 still. Stories above. A rep orders a ministry to return 85 billion naira COVID-19 funds. Oil firms Unity Bank lead as market capital hits 50 trillion naira. Last on the front page of the Punch newspaper, federal government plans over $3 trillion for energy transition. And that's all we can take on the front pages of the papers this morning. Join us after the break. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back. If you're just joining me still today in the News on Vanguard Live, I am Precious Chukudi, and joining me to talk about some of the stories on the front pages of the papers this morning is Mr. Rotimi Ajayi, former regional editor at Vanguard Media Limited. It's good to have you join me this morning, Mr. Rotimi.
Thank you, Precious. How are you? And how's everybody in the studio?
Very well, thank you. All right, let's delve in and talk about some of these stories. And of course, the president has actually acknowledged that the impact of the removal of fuel subsidy was very tough on Nigerians, and that's coming from the year 2023 and up till now. But he's also assured that the future remains bright for Nigerians. So what's your take on how the government has really handled issues or bordering on hardship for Nigerians?
Well, I must say, for the first time, we seem to have a government that is determined and committed to actually tackle the fundamental causes of problem for Nigerians. It is not unexpected that the fuel subsidy is having impact on Nigeria negatively, because our production system, our production base got shut down several decades ago. I'm talking about 1980s, early 1990s. So now this is about the first time since then that we are having an administration or a government that is determined to holistically look at things and then try to see what we can do. Fuel subsidy is not bad in itself if it is properly implemented, but we are not at the stage. We lost the capacity to implement anything subsidy for Nigeria now because of a number of factors. Corruption is one, you understand? No matter the good intention of federal government or state government or local government or anything at all in Nigeria, it has to be driven by human beings. Nigerians are not properly given the orientation to do things without the significant content of corruption. So when you talk about subsidy, when we were running it, it was a good intention for Nigeria. But what we're supposed to go with the subsidy were not properly channeled, were not properly implemented. We didn't have data to go along with us with the cost of implementing subsidy. So you didn't even know the amount of fuel that we were actually dispensing in Nigeria, and then we lost our refineries. Then we had to import fuel from outside the country. So getting it from outside the country expanded the cost of corruption for many Nigerians. For Nigerians, the few Nigerians, who made billions of dollars from this. All of a sudden, you see some people that became billionaires, and you begin to wonder, is it that they were smarter than you? No, they are not. You understand? They were negatively smarter than you, but they feasted on the system that was very bad that Nigerian government could not do anything about. So now, if you look at what the federal government is doing by removing the subsidy, first they roll out that they are trying to expand the social intervention program. Well, I can tell you that too ran into trouble because of our corruption system. You heard what happened to the Better Edu scandal. You understand? We are still on the scandal. We don't know what's going to happen at the end of the day. But to me, the federal government, Mr. President, would do well if he's consistent with what he's doing without looking at any distraction.
All right, still in that same vein, the Catholic bishop also attended like a 2-day meeting, where they had to speak about, they lamented about the heightened hardship that Nigerians have been facing so far. What ways do you think that the government should be looking at in terms of cutting the cost of governance and bringing relief to the people?
When Nigerians talk about cutting cost of governance, I wonder what they really mean. Yes, we say we can shut down an arm of the National Assembly. I totally agree with that. We do not have any serious need for two arms of National Assembly in Nigeria, because when you look at what they are doing, it's more or less like a repetition. In democracy, it was supposed to serve as a check against each other, but then, as it is in Nigeria today, we do not have the capacity to run that in terms of funding. Now, when you talk about cutting the cost of governance, if you cut it at the federal government, at the federal level, are you going to cut it at the state level? Let's take a state like Lagos. Lagos spends a lot of money. When you see the development profile of Lagos state government, and you can feel it, Nigerians, Lagosians are feeling it. Unfortunately for Lagos, the volume of people that poured into Lagos every day from every part of Nigeria, from all parts, I tell you, the volume is more than what the system they are building can cope. This is why I'm expecting a state like Oko or Yo to actually key into what is happening in Lagos and tap into it. If you cut the cost of governance here at the federal level, how are you going to cut it at the state level? It is very simple to say, yes, we are buying vehicles for federal government. Are you going to say your ministers will not move? Are you going to say your governors will not move? Are you going to say the president will not move? Or the national security advisor will not move? That is that. Then how about offices? You still have to run the offices. As it is today, we are not running competent governance in any part of Nigeria. So when you talk about cutting, what we need to do is channel our resources to how we can give proper efficiency to governance. That is the best that can help Nigerians. We have to reduce the corruption in the system, and then we can now see how we can make it much more efficient. If we make it much more efficient, we find out that we even have a need to increase the amount of money that government at all levels need to impact on people. I'll give you something. Go to a local government in the rural part of Nigeria. When I talk about rural part, I'm not talking about a part like a Korodu or something. That's not rural. The real rural part of Nigeria, let's say a place like a Ibadan area of Osun State. Okay, you find out that the local government will virtually have no capacity to do anything other than to clear the gutter. Okay, yet local government has a lot of development capacity, the development role to play in other climes, in other countries. So we should, the churches should equally help Nigeria. The churches take away from Nigeria, they are not giving anything back. Okay? Every day, every time they collect money, it might be at minute level, but they are not giving anything essentially back to Nigerians. The Catholic Church is big enough to begin to do certain things that will impact development, that will impact on the people that are coming to the churches. That will even make more people to come to church. That's my take.
All right, I would like to take you back. You said we're not running a competent governance in Nigeria. What are your expectations, really?
Yeah. My expectations are very simple. We need to increase the policing system in Nigeria. When I mean policing, I'm not talking about Nigerian police. Now, if I give a budget to Ministry of Social Intervention, Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, okay? And I say, I need you to give a social intervention fund to 20 million Nigerians. I should have a target that, okay, fine, this amount of money that I'm giving to these Nigerians should be able to take them from this point to this point. And when I take them to this point, because of other system, other policy that I'm going to run, they will no longer be within the poverty range. But what do we have? You give them that money, they take that money, they eat, buy bread, buy rice, buy everything, and then that money goes into the drain because it's going to go into the natural process of digestion. Okay? So over the years, if you look at the amount of money that former president spent on this social intervention program, it ran into trillions of naira. So my expectation is that government should increase the policing of the funding that goes into projects in Nigeria. And I do that. I don't, honestly, it's a very big thing, because if you get, let's take education. If you say you want to ensure that you have competent classrooms in Nigerian public schools, you need teachers to be able to do that. You need school administrators to be able to do that. Now, the two of them need to be supervised. How do you do that? you need human beings. And who are the people that we are going to use to man and power this place? Civil servants. Now, what kind of civil servants do we have in Nigeria today? They are the majority of them are interested in what do I get from the system. In part of that, it has become so ridiculous that when we talk about workers in Nigeria, we talk only about civil servants. They no longer think that those who are working in the media houses are workers. Those who are working in the transport sectors are workers. So when they are agitating for civil servants. Salaries go up for civil servants, and you have so many media houses that are not actually paying their workers, and then they now begin to talk about workers. So government needs to increase the policing of the funds that go into policy implementation in Nigeria.
All right, still on this same meeting with the Catholic bishop, one of the things they spoke about was the growing japa syndrome, and that it is a growing concern causing brain drain in Nigeria. Now, what are your thoughts on how can we revamp our economy and foster national development?
How do we revamp what are my thoughts about the growing japa syndrome in Nigeria? Human beings are naturally governed by pleasure and pain. What do I mean by that? Well, I'm not the owner of that statement. It's Jeremy Bentham, old English philosopher. You understand? Every person that you see takes action because he or she wants to derive some benefit from the action. That's the pleasure. Or he or she wants to run away from pain. From the action. That's the pain. So if a place is not conducive or suitable enough, those who have the capacity will likely go away. So that is the japa. Now, how do we revamp our economy so that we address this japa syndrome? That's a good question. How do we revamp our economy? We need to increase we need to expand our how do I call it, orientation. The orientation in Nigeria should change. At the moment, because of the preponderant preaching of prosperity, the orientation in the country is quick money. Way back in 1970s, 1980s, we were preaching values. We were addressing values to human beings. Okay? But now we are addressing prosperity. We are addressing quick money, miracle. So I don't know, the national orientation cannot do this one. Mr. President will need to call the governors together in the Council of State meeting, make them understand the need for them to go to their states and carry out this holistic orientation. Of course, it will involve the traditional rulers. We need to talk to them. If you dedicate somebody, you give somebody a task, you must expect that the task will be implemented. Here we are in Vanguard. You need to run this program. If you do not keep it to mind that you need to be in your studio, this program will not run. And you can give a million excuses to the management of Vanguard. Yes, for that particular moment, you might look, okay, I just didn't come today. That singular day that you did not feature on that program will cost you followership, readership, you understand? And over time, it begins to have monumental effect on the integrity of Vanguard. That is the way it is in the country. So revamping our economy starts from the orientation of our people. Then two, we need to talk to the private sector. You understand? Particularly the banks. Okay? You cannot develop an economy without funding. And your funding rests solely with the banking system. It is only in Nigeria that I see bankers who tell their staff, you have this target, you have to bring in this amount of million. From where are they bringing in that amount of million? Most of the banks are no longer funding projects. They are no longer giving loans out to small-scale investors, small-scale entrepreneurs, you understand? But what they do right now is that they just keep tasking their staff to go out and bring in deposit. Where is the deposit coming from? when you are not producing. You are not generating revenue. So, two things: change the orientation, and then make sure we change the banking ethos in Nigeria.
All right, still on the meeting with the Catholic bishop, they spoke about this same-sex marriage, and this is coming from the statement that came from the Pope. How do you react to this information from them? And they're saying they no blessing for same-sex marriage, literally.
Honestly, this is a very sensitive place. It's a very sensitive thing to say. I do not think, just like I do not think that religion should be the concern of government. I do not think that the issue of sexual orientation of anybody should be the concern of law of government. Yeah, but that's a tricky thing, because when you look at the health impact of same-sex, or how do I describe it, of same-sex practice, it can tell on the health capacity of a nation, of a society. But should we say because we are not going to legalize, or we are not legalizing it, then blindfold ourselves and pretend as if it's not happening? From my experience, I know that increasing number of Nigerians are engaging in it. And so, whether we like it or not, we can, pretty sure we can. You understand? The hard posture of churches in Nigeria has not produced any positive benefit for the country. Okay? Other than promising you that you're going to go to heaven. You understand? So, we've been praying for the economy for the past 20, 30 years. The result is there for us to see. So we can't pretend that there is no same-sex going on in Nigeria. But how did we get into this? How did we get into the practice of same-sex? Of course, culture comes from outside the country. It dilutes our own orientation. Well, it's because our orientation is not big and good enough. When you look at the incidence of same-sex, it is not becoming so alarming in places like China, in places like Japan, as it is becoming so alarming in places like Nigeria, because we are consumers of everything Western. Okay? Same-sex is a Western problem, Western nations problem. Okay? And we consume everything that comes from there as a status thing in our country. So we cannot pretend that it's not existing. What we need to do is to begin to treat it at the micro level. And what do I mean by that? Everybody in Nigeria comes from a community, from a family. Okay? So if we go about tackling the problem of same-sex from the family, we might be able to greatly reduce the expansion.
All right. We move over to the Ibadan explosion. What's your reaction on that explosion that has killed the death toll has risen to like 5 people, and also the police are saying that they are looking for the owners of the building. They've declared them wanted. What's your take on that situation?
It is a lamentable situation. That it is a very horrible thing that explosion, that incident could happen at that scale in Ibadan. If anybody knows Ibadan is a closely knitted community or city, that a little spark can consume a very large area of space. When, according to the governor, that the cause of the explosion came from piling of dynamite explosives by some illegal miner, that is a serious reflection of how bad our system is. It is good for the police to say we are looking for the owners of the building, but what is the police trying to tell us? Are they saying that building, that particular building, or the building where the explosives were stockpiled, were owned by the illegal miners, or the illegal miners rented the building. If they rented the building, the owners may not be aware of what the tenants were doing in that building. However, let us assume that the building were built by the illegal miners. You understand? Now you are looking for him. In a Nigeria where we do not have proper tracking mechanism, how is policeman going to get him? I'm not aware that police has told us the killers of Bolage. I'm not aware that police has told us the killers of the then what's his name? Something Ari. There are so many unresolved cases of crime that Nigerian police has not been able to tell us. Okay, so when they say they are looking for it, it's good. It's something for them to make it look as if they are doing something. You understand? But to me, there is nothing we can do about it other than to begin to look at. I don't know how we're going to tackle this issue. Maybe we begin to look at the issue of urban replanning. Ibadan needs a lot of urban replanning because the way it is situated at the moment, any little spark, even if it's fire incidents, go to places like Okemako area, you understand, and see if there's a fire incident, particularly there's a market along between Mapui and Gate. If a single fire incident to happen in that area, it will consume so many buildings. I'm not sure if that's the only city that is like that. So let us just begin to rebuild our nation gradually. We should not be pretending as if we are addressing social problems the way other nations that are well organized are addressing it. Let us start from the very basic.
Pressures facing the 2024 national budget. Now, the federal government has said that they would not allow the central bank to print money by ways and means to fund the budget deficit. What's your thought on that?
Precious. I wonder how we can meaningfully and reasonably continue that practice of printing money to fund a budget. Okay? We are further plunging the country into economic problem. What do I mean? If the money in circulation is 10 naira, okay, and you have a budget that is about 15 naira, you are basing your budget on the possibility of making some sales within that 10 naira that will generate additional money, maybe say 2 naira. And then I say I'm going to Ineka to give me 3 naira so that I'll be able to meet the budget of 15 naira that I have. You find out that when I'm running that budget, I will not have put pressure on the purchasing power of Nigerians by unnecessarily pushing additional volume of naira into the system. I have gone to Ineka to take some 3 naira. That means I have the mind and the duty to work to return the 3 naira to Ineka. But how do I do that? I must ensure that 3 naira generates profit, including the profit that I'm making from the trading, from the production that I'm making within the 10 naira. So if you go to print, you are pushing the country into problem. So it is a good thing that the CBN came out with that position that they're not going to allow printing of currency or of naira to fund the budget. Because let us look at the last time that we had even currency naira printed in Nigeria. Up to today, up to this very moment, I'm not sure Nigerians have been told the volume of naira that was printed and the reason why that money had to be printed. The former president made a statement recently about this. I was talking that he was not fully aware about the activities of the former CBN governor. Of course, he was talking about he was not aware that he had a presidential ambition. That is a laughable statement coming from him. Every institution of state, particularly that of the State Security Service, reports to the president. Every day, there is a file that will go to the president from the SSS, call for your eyes only. I am not sure, and every institution of state has an officer of the state security working in there. So I am not sure the officer that work or the officers that worked at the SSN, at the CBN, I'm not sure they feel it their duty to report that case to Mr. President. So for him to feign ignorance, he needed to apologize to Nigeria. I'm talking about the former president. So when you look at him, if he's not aware of that simple thing, he may not be able to understand the concept of printing money to fund his own budget. So if the current CBN management says, or the federal government says the current CBN will not be allowed to print money to run our budget, yes, it is better for us to face these hardship walls and then we get out of it than continue to window dress it, and then we all collectively will sink.
All right, let's touch on the spate of kidnapping in Abuja and Nigerians crowdfunding to pay terrorists. What's your reaction?
You see, when you look at Abuja, we are focusing on Abuja because Abuja now is a city of elite. There are so many ordinary Nigerians that have been suffering, so many ordinary Nigerians, towns and cities that have been suffering from kidnapping, that we don't get, these things don't get into the media. Okay? We've had cases in Sanfara, cases in southern part of Kaduna, we call it southern Zaria, and then cases in part of Borno, Benue. Even when you come to the south, I'm not sure some parts of the southeast, southwest, particularly I know about Kogi area, the parts of Osun State, Ondo State, and I think Enugu. You understand? They've suffered cases of kidnapping. But the case of Abuja is becoming attractive because the elites don't always want anything that will hurt them. But when you look at it, when these things were happening in the rural areas, the elites that were living in the rural states had to move into Abuja because they felt Abuja became safe. Of course, when you are moving, a VIP that is moving into Abuja will move with either his steward or a steward, his driver or a driver, and those also move with their own significant others, girlfriend, wives, or friends. You understand? And you do not know the characters that are moving with you. And so they have to live somewhere. Years back, when the former minister of FCT, Malam Nasir El-Rufai, was talking about demolition, and then it was challenged that, okay, some of these houses that are being demolished within Abuja, where do you want the ordinary people to live? That was a sleep. You understand? That many of them don't have to be in Abuja. Correct. If you do not have a gainful employment and you relocate to a place, it might be difficult for you to survive. So you might have to resort to some illicit activities. You understand? So maybe that's what it meant. But I am not surprised now with the volume of people that are moving into Abuja and it's causing this kind of kidnapping. But we must not equally lose sight of the fact that for every change of president, what do I mean by that? If you change a president from one person to the other, as we did from Jonathan to Buhari, from Buhari to TINUBU now, not less than 1,000 people at least, fresh, will have to move into that city. How is that happening? The president is going to come with his own set of people that he had known wherever he was living. There is no president that has been elected that were originally living in Abuja. Okay? The members of National Assembly will come with their own people. and ministers will come with their own people. These people will come with their own people too. So these are the number of people, these are how things move. And then you now have friends and associate coming in with them. So all kind of characters who are bound to come in, and then it increases, it puts pressure on the facilities, accommodation, security network, and infrastructure in the city. So this is why it's happening. Now the second part of it, which is talking about funding terrorism. I really don't subscribe to any aspect of abetting terrorism. What do I mean? If we look at what is happening now, it is a reflection of the failure of security. But can our security apparatus handle the present situation in the country? No. It doesn't matter. There's no way, if Nigerians are thinking that the police are not doing enough, maybe we should pay them more and everything. If you look at the salaries of the police, they always like to talk about low payment and poor payment. A police officer is any commensurate to what an ordinary Nigerian is earning. The last time I checked, ordinary constable, no rank, no chevron, okay, in the police, you are just coming in, which means you are not a graduate. That's about 40-something thousand naira. There are some Nigerian graduates that I knew back then in Osho that were earning just about 30-something thousand naira every month. Okay? But because they were not given God, they didn't have the weapon to blackmail the system. Okay? Now, the Nigerian police will say we are short of manpower. We can't run after the terrorists. Okay? Which is correct. The terrorists are operating like they are operating like unestablished army. Okay? Yes, you don't know, they don't have a particular location in which you can run after them and arrest them. You could get intelligence and say they live in this place. If you are lucky and they are still there, you get them. Okay? But we need to now begin to see how we can activate state or local government policing. In which case, it can lead to community policing, that you know your neighbor knows his neighbor or her neighbor, and then we'll be able to know this person lives here. We are not quite sure of what he or she does. Then we can systematically find out who that person is and what that person is doing. So that would help us to nip this problem in the. It's not nipping it. It has already exploded. It will help us to reduce the problem that we are having at the moment.
All right,
okay? Instead of just saying you want to fund them.
All right, let's touch on Mr. and Mrs. Before we go. Mrs. is speaking this.
Mr. and Mrs.
Yeah, Mr. and Mrs. this morning, and Mrs. is speaking. Says, from the look of things.
That's a cartoon.
Yeah. From the look of things, your friend's wife is sorry for her actions. She really cried her eyes out. And Mr. replies and says, my friend said, as an experienced zookeeper, nobody can deceive him with crocodile tears.
I used to remember that, I still remember that Mr. and Mrs. happened to be one of the favorites of Uncle Sam. Okay? And when you look at this particular thing, crocodile tears, you see, men are beginning to understand that women can come up with all kind of guys to get things wrong or to placate men. Okay? Yeah. The situation in Nigeria now has called for, it's making many men to actually look at, okay, fine, she's my wife, and if she's saying she did this thing and she's sorry about it, and she's crying, okay, it's okay, let her continue to cry. When she finishes crying, she will dry her eyes, and then life will continue. Relationship has been tasked just like the whole life system in Nigeria, and marriages are being impacted significantly. Okay, so it is better for us to introduce some comic relief into our life. You understand? Unlike Mr. and Mrs. Cartoon, anytime you take it, you are going to laugh, you are going to smile. At least it makes you to momentarily forget, okay, I need to enter Oshodi, I need to go to Chikoi or Karishi. It's a good one. It's a good one. Yeah. That's a good one.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Rotimi Ajayi, former regional editor, North Vanguard Media Limited. Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us this morning.
Thank you, Precious, and thanks to everybody behind the camera. I wish you a very great day.
Yeah. Also, remember that you can equally like, share, and subscribe on all our social media platforms showing on your screen. To find up-to-date stories, go to our website, www.vanguardngra.com, to find out more. I am Precious Chukudi, and thank you.